Welcome to another edition of the Fanatics View Hockey Show. My name is James Lynch. Look who's back. We had to get him back after a couple of weeks off. Troy Noak, the returning champion here on the show. We're going to talk all things Stanley Cup Finals. We're also going to look back a little bit and look forward. There's a lot to get into news-wise. Appreciate you guys tuning in. A little bit later today. Normally we're on at 12 Eastern. I had to move it to 1:30 today. But first, Troy, how's it going, man? I know school's all done, so you got a little bit more time. But how are you enjoying the playoffs, and how's everything going with you?
Oh, it's awesome. I really was shocked by the results of that last game, genuinely by the scoreline and how efficient Florida were at breaking the puck out. It seems like they're a complete well-oiled machine, and this is the first blowout of the series. And last Stanley Cup Final, the lowest scoring team ended up winning. So just because there's a blowout doesn't mean it's over for the Oilers.
Yeah, and by the way, that game going down tomorrow night. We'll preview that. We'll talk about that series in a second, but I want to go all the way back because we gave our predictions for the conference finals. We were both wrong, but we were both right. So I was right about, obviously, Florida going to the finals. You were right about Edmonton beating Dallas. What surprised you more, I think, out of all the results? For me, it was, I think just the fact that, I picked the Panthers to win, but I didn't think it would be similar to what we've seen so many other years against Carolina. Like, it's just amazing that Carolina can't seem to get over this hump of the Eastern Conference Finals. I think with Dallas, you could sort of tell after that first game. I mean, the first game looked like an anomaly. They just couldn't compete with Edmonton, and I think losing Rupe Hintz was a big one too, and Ottinger, and obviously the coaching as well. So, just your overall thoughts on the on the conference finals, because obviously some surprising stuff there.
Yeah, my overall thoughts on the conference finals as someone that chose the Carolina Hurricanes to win is the Metropolitan Division in the Eastern Conference is a complete joke, because anytime one of these teams step up against a true Atlantic contender, they end up getting walked like dogs. And yes, it's the same thing over and over again. Carolina really does lack the star power in the forward department to change games. Yes, they're annoying to play against and tough to play against, but they can't put the puck in the net consistently in that middle six forward group, in my opinion. So that's why they lost the series, and fair that they lost that way.
Do you not think, obviously getting a superstar in the offseason's got to be a priority. I know there's not exactly a lot of options. They do have some picks, obviously, from the Mikko Rantanen trade. And I think a goaltender as well. I think they got to address that a little bit. Like, again, I think Frederik Andersen can get you to a certain point. Is he a guy that's going to be stealing games for you? I don't know. I think those are two moves they need. I think they need like a Mitch Marner type player. Like, I still don't think Mitch Marner is going to go there. I just have a hunch that, I know there's less pressure in Carolina, but you're Carolina, you got to know that Marner, unfortunately, is not a guy to rely on in the playoffs. I can't see that being the difference maker they want. I think they would rather go the route via trade. Obviously, there's some options out there, but what do you think Carolina needs to do for next year?
Well, this is a hot take, and I've told a few of my friends this, and they're like, my man, this is not what they need. You're insane. Mm-hmm. But I'm very optimistic about this player. I think the Carolina Hurricanes need to make a trade for Bowen Byram and promote him to the top power play and give him the minutes he deserves. Brent Burns is an old man. Shane Gostisbehere is very talented, but has no business running a top power play unit on a team that's trying to win the Stanley Cup. We've seen time and time again that Bowen Byram, even at even strength, I believe he and Rasmus Dahlin had tied for the best plus minus rating at even strength as a defensive pair in the NHL, and he was playing on his offside. So I think Carolina should be rolling the dice. No, he's not the prototypical Carolina defenseman that's 6'4" and blocks shots with his teeth, but they really do need a puck transporter with some offensive spark on power play one, because their 2-point options at power play one were a complete joke in the playoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what moves they make. I think if you're Buffalo, just because they've sort of already gone through a rebuild and it hasn't really worked out, I'm imagining if you are going to deal Bowen Byram, you probably want a roster player back, obviously along with some picks. So I wonder, I know they're trying to get rid of Kotkaniemi. There's some rumblings here that the Canucks, I get me away from Kotkaniemi. The defensive liabilities that he possesses, it's not even worth taking a shot on his upside. If you can't find an upside in Carolina, you got a problem, I think. So I think that'll be interesting to see what the Sabres sort of want back there. And then kind of looking on the other side quickly, and again, we will talk about the finals here, just because we haven't spoken since the conference finals. Dallas, we're hearing Jason Robertson's on the block. They fired Pete DeBoer, which I kind of expected just from what you were hearing from the exit meetings, and obviously what DeBoer said about kind of throwing Ottinger under the bus. Dude, you can't throw your goaltender under the bus that's signed long term. That's not going to go over well with anyone. I think DeBoer, I don't know, but there's going to be some changes, obviously, and then obviously some UFAs as well. They've got, is Duchesne going to come back? Obviously, Jamie Benn, what's his future? What do you see for Dallas going forward?
Yeah, and this is why ultimately I think a Jason Robertson trade makes sense if they're planning the future out well, because they just got Mikko Rantanen on a huge contract, correct? Apparently, they want to bring Jamie Benn back with a little bit of a hometown discount sort of thing. And naturally, Jason Robertson lost his spot on power play 1 to Mikko Rantanen on that right-sided faceoff circle as a left-handed shot. He was still getting good deployment at even strength with him and Rupe Hintz. But we're talking about a point-per-game player. We're talking about a guy who's around 25 years old in his prime, and most of these players never really hit the trade market. And not this year, but I believe next year his contract's up. And, I mean, this guy's put up a 40-piece multiple times. He's a point-per-game player. And as a statistics nerd, I've been betting on his shots on goal prop since he broke onto the scene 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, this guy, he can really shoot the lights out. And any team that can acquire him should do that, whether it's multiple first-round picks, a prospect, a proven roster player. This is the prototypical player that the Columbus Blue Jackets need.
I was just going to say that when I saw that he was on the block, you were one of the first people I thought of, because I think it's a perfect fit in Columbus, and you guys have the assets to pull it off.
And it's like, don't get me wrong, the young guys do need their opportunity. They're slowly getting up the lineup better and better. But would it kill the Columbus Blue Jackets to replace Kent Johnson with Jason Robertson on power play 1? Absolutely not. It absolutely wouldn't, because that second power play unit is basically just going to be the youth power play unit with Kent Johnson, Fantilli, Denton Matejchuk, these sort of 21, 22, 23-year-old guys that are going to be carrying the future. Just give us those reliable guys that can make an impact now that also fit the time plan of this team, because we have a pretty young team moving forward. We have no business acquiring 32 and 33-year-old players. We need guys around 25 to 27.
Yeah, and I think Waddell knows that too. He's been around the block a few times. You can't be signing guys like that to long contracts. That's more for younger teams that need that guy, like a Chicago, for example. Like, those are the type of players you maybe take a swing on, just because, again, you need that leadership in the room. The big question here is, who's going to coach Dallas? I have some theories. It's really interesting, and maybe you know the answer to this and I don't. Why is people not talking about Peter Laviolette? That, to me, seems like an obvious choice with the fact that he's got so much experience. I know things didn't end well in New York, but we're talking about a guy who's won I believe Laviolette's won a cup, right? He won one with Carolina, did he not? If I remember correctly.
I think he won one with Philly.
Or but it might have been with Philly, actually, now that I think about it. Either way, he's probably the most experienced coach that's out there right now. I saw the list because there's like betting odds of like who could be the coach. Any ideas who you think could go to Dallas?
Another name that I don't understand why it isn't getting mentioned either is Jay Woodcroft. I mean, the last coaching cycle entirely passed him by, and he wasn't even considered in the majority of these jobs. And I remember when there was a vacancy at the Columbus head coaching position, I was like, he should be at least being considered. And he wasn't even being considered. It was Dean Evison, Todd McClellan, and one other guy that got a job very quickly and we lost out on. I'm forgetting his name, but Jay Woodcroft wasn't even taken into consideration. And to be honest, the Edmonton Oilers have extremely high expectations, and I personally believe he was fired unjustifiably because they start off horrible every year. Let's be real. I mean, name a season that the Edmonton Oilers' first 12 games have an overwhelmingly positive record. I can't even remember since I've been playing fantasy hockey. So, I mean, this guy got the boot for a cold start. I don't know. I feel like he's really deserving of a really good opportunity as a head coach coming up.
Yeah, no, I like that move too. There's a long shot now, as I'm saying this, and hopefully I know who's going to watch the replay. This Taylor, my guy who runs Fanatics View, he thinks Manny Malhotra might be an option. And they the Texas Stars who play in the AHL, they played Abby in the finals. Leading into the Calder Cup in the West Finals. So Dallas has a pretty good idea of what Malhotra brings. This has been an unbelievable run. Like Abbotsford Canucks were not favored to go very far in the playoffs. Now they're in the Calder Cup final. They're playing the Charlotte Checkers coming up here, I think, next week. Malhotra is a big reason for that. And the other thing that's been positive too, you see a lot of those players that have come from Abbotsford get opportunities in Vancouver. A lot of that is the development that Manny Malhotra's done. There's a lot of people here in Vancouver that are pissed off that they didn't wait to get Malhotra as the coach instead of Adam Foote. I know there's obviously different arguments either way because, if you bring Foote back, it's similar to Tocchet, and there's all these different things. But Malhotra did play for Dallas at one time, so there is a connection there. What do you think about that possibility? Because he's and he's got lots of experience. He was assistant coach in Vancouver, assistant coach in Toronto for a number of years. Like, he's been waiting for a head coach opportunity. And if you win a Calder Cup, look at Marco Sturm, who obviously is with Boston now. It certainly weighs a lot in the industry.
I don't think it's a bad option, but I think the best option has to be Peter Laviolette because we know he has a short shelf life. This is a guy that I can't remember the last time he spent more than 3 years with the team. It's the truth.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, he goes in there, he gets results quickly. He has very simple and high demands of his players, and they play hard for him. And then they eventually get to a point where they get fed up with the message. It's very repetitive, and they get annoyed. But I mean, if Dallas has made it to the Western Conference Final this many times, and they're this close to making it over the hump, why are you not taking a stab at a veteran coach that has the ability to make a huge jump with the team? Because I'm one of the biggest New York Rangers haters there is, and I'm saying it straight up right now. To take the New York Rangers to the President's Trophy is incredible. And I make fun of that team all the time. If you always had looked into their statistics the past few years, at 5-on-5, they're a complete joke. Yeah. And you know what? Peter Laviolette fired these guys up and had the special teams operating at the best in the league. And that's how they compensated for it. They couldn't do anything in the playoffs once they met their match with the Florida Panthers, who were the best 5-on-5 team in the NHL for the last 3 years. But you know what? Send Peter Laviolette over there and we'll shake it up a little bit and see if they'll be a little tougher to play against, honestly.
Well, I just, a couple things, like obviously, Dallas has gone with a lot of experience in the past. If you look at some of the past coaches, Rick Bowness, like they've been in that market of where they typically don't bring in sort of a newer guy. And you've got such a group that's been together for so long. It does seem to make a bit more sense to go the Laviolette route. I'm just surprised that I don't hear his name much. I actually do hear Woodcroft's name a lot. My understanding is he keeps missing out on these jobs. Like I believe he was in the running for the Pittsburgh job. He was in the running for the Anaheim job as well. So, he's obviously getting close. I think Woodcroft will go with one team. I don't know what team that'll be, but we're starting to see stuff fill up. I didn't even know this last week. I just saw this like the other day. Lane Lambert's with Seattle now. I didn't see that from who used to coach the Islanders. So he's there. I don't really understand that hiring.
So basically what you're telling me is the Seattle Kraken just got Gavin McKenna.
Basically, exactly. I know. I don't get it because he didn't do very well with the Islanders, so I don't know why there was such a rush. And then he was just with the Leafs this past season. So
it's calculated chaos. They're trying to get that Gavin McKenna pick.
They could be playing the long game. You're right. And some other names we've heard: Todd Richards, Mitch Love, who's with Washington. That's a name I keep hearing come up. So it'll be interesting to see if some of these vacancies get filled. But something to definitely keep an eye on. Okay, let's talk about the finals. I think this has been one of the best Stanley Cup finals we've seen in like this reminds me a lot, actually. And again, a little biased here. It's got shades of Canucks Bruins in 2011 a little bit, a lot of physicality. You got Brad Marchand involved. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of stuff that's going on. So I'll be honest, when I saw game one and Edmonton won in OT, I was like, man, Florida looks slow. Like what's going on here? And I'm kind of thinking like they might be out of gas. But the game we saw the other night with Florida just, stomping them with 6-1, and then Edmonton almost poking the bear to a certain degree. Like you're not going to what's the word I'm looking for? You can't out.
They're not going to bring more tenacity than the
exactly. And I feel like they did the exact opposite of what you should do. Like they're trying to go after, what was it? Like Reinhardt and like all, you know what I mean? Like you're not going to win that battle. And I almost feel like they might've woken up a sleeping giant. And I'm kind of at the point now, and this is honestly bias aside, because I picked Florida in the series. I think Florida's got this. Like, I'd be pretty surprised after what happened in that game if Edmonton's able to persevere and come through. Your thoughts on that game? Because I think that could be the turning point.
That game was impressive. Don't get me wrong, but I will say this.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to be biased, but the Edmonton Oilers, I mean, how many offensive zone penalties did they commit in that game where they lost 6-1? At least three. At least three. Am I saying that they played better than them at even strength? Absolutely not. The Florida Panthers, the way they were breaking the puck out and entering the zone with the puck on their stick was unmatched. They were forcing the Oilers to dump so much because they couldn't get any clean entries. Aaron Ekblad was absolutely igniting Connor McDavid, knocking him on his ass. They deserve to win, but I will say I predicted this going 7 the whole time, and I can't see Edmonton not having a response here. And Florida has literally lost a home game in every series, although they've made it to the Stanley Cup Final. It's not like they have a perfect record at home. So if they're going to drop one, it's probably going to be here after there's allegedly going to be lineup adjustments with Troy Stetcher coming in and allegedly an unnamed forward, which I didn't see on Twitter yet, which is probably out now because of the skate lines and line rushes.
I'll have a quick look, see if there's any
they're tweaking a couple things. We haven't seen an under 6.5 so far this series. They've all been high scoring. I have a feeling this is going to be the lowest scoring game in the entire series. I think this is going to be a dump and chase fest, and I think Edmonton are going to try their hardest to make it really tough for Florida to play against. And they're going to try to get the Uno reverse card and make Florida dump and chase instead of having their way entering the zone, because Florida, all they did was enter the zone with the puck on their stick with no resistance last game.
I will say this: if Edmonton has any opportunity of turning this around, this is the game to do it. I mean, not only would you tie the series, but I think, again, Florida's feeling really high here. They really, they dominated this game in the last one. Here's the question for you. Do they go with Skinner or do they go with Calvin Pickard? What do you think?
I'm so thankful you asked me this question.
Yeah.
Stuart Skinner has a .955 save percentage in game 4s.
Yeah, I'm glad I saw that stat too. I was actually going to bring that up, but yeah, you took it from me.
If I didn't see the stat, I would say absolutely not. You can't start Stu Skinner. Mm-hmm. But I think you just have to put him back, because the truth of the matter is Calvin Pickard is just not good enough at this point in the season. And I know Stuart Skinner absolutely got shelled last game, but Edmonton didn't play that well in front of him. Like I said before, Florida made them look like a complete joke. So I'm not going to say, oh my God, like, Stuart Skinner, what are you doing? You got to be making some of these saves. I mean, he was left for dead on a handful of those goals, and Edmonton played atrocious. So I think you kind of got to go back to him knowing the history in game 4. And if you put Calvin Pickard in and he gets shelled, you're going to get nonstop questions in the media for Chris.
Yeah, good point.
How'd you not start Stuart Skinner with a .955 save percentage in game 4, and Calvin Pickard got absolutely shelled?
Yeah,
he's going to have to start him, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the way to go here. The thing, if you dig into the stats a little bit more with Skinner, and this might sound like an obvious thing, but like a lot of, like, if you actually look at the goals, and I've heard some people talk about this, just that know, like, the analytics side of things, like Skinner plays bad when the team plays bad type thing. Like, he's not really a goalie that can steal games for you. Like, like you look at, I mean, we know plenty of goalies where it's like, oh my God, like they wouldn't have won if it wasn't for the goaltending. Like, I think the Leafs had that a bit when they played Ottawa in the opening round with, I think it was Stolarz who was in that. Like, sometimes you're just going to get, lights out goaltending. I don't really think Skinner's that guy, but I think he is one of those guys that will play his best when the team in front of him plays well. Because if you look at the goals, it's not, again, it's not a lot that many goalies can save. So I think you're right there. If the Oilers play better, Skinner's game will elevate as well, and he'll certainly play better too. What has impressed you the most? We'll start with the Panthers. Like, I mean, just the fact that you're still getting so much from Brad Marchand at his age. He keeps getting goals every game. Like, it's crazy how much that, when you think of the trades that they made, the Seth Jones one can't go unnoticed. He's getting a lot of minutes. He's been a big addition for maybe Ekblad, maybe not playing, up to snuff at certain times. Jones has sort of filled that role. But to me, Marchand's been their MVP, like, in terms of being clutch and getting those goals. Like, him and Verhaeghe are, like, anybody would want them on their team. Who stood up for you on Florida?
And this is a guy that heading into the playoffs, I had huge question marks with coming off the PED suspension. Aaron Ekblad's averaging almost a point per game this playoffs. Yeah, he's playing so well, and Seth Jones as well. The Florida top power play unit is running 2 defensemen with Seth Jones and Aaron Ekblad, and they're tearing it up. And his goal that he scored last game, where he wandered into the left faceoff circle with the behind-the-back pass from Sam Reinert, left Stuart Skinner for, you can't stop that. You just can't stop that. And Aaron Ekblad, when he hits free agency this summer, because they traded for Seth Jones, and the only way they could acquire him is because Matthew Tkachuk was injured to have the salary cap space to get it. It was a calculated move. He's going to get paid because he's got the Stanley Cup pedigree. He knocked McDavid on his ass last game. He's a premium right shot defenseman, former first overall pick. I mean, I hope Columbus is throwing $8 million at 7 years to Aaron Ekblad, because we need a right-handed shot so bad. Imagine top defensive pairing at even strength with him and Zach Werenski.
It'd be amazing. And yeah, he's 29, so he's kind of in that sweet spot of where, like, you're going to get a couple really good years out of him. And then after that, it'll be like Chris Tanev, where it's like, the LTIR retirement type thing, probably by the end, the way that guy plays, right? So, Yeah, we'll have to see. The Oilers, for me, and this is something I talked about. We had Avery on last week who covers the Oilers. I've been really impressed with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, especially prior to this series where he's really stepped it up. I feel like in years past, he hasn't really been that noticeable, but this year he's been a contributing factor for sure. But I think there's been a lot of good players, stepping up. Even a guy like Puck Colson, just for what he needs to do for the Oilers. I know he didn't have a great game last game, but I just think they don't need him to be a first round pick, which is what he was with Vancouver. I think he thrives in the role of just being like, okay, just do what you do, and we'll handle the rest. Who at Edmonton's really kind of caught your eye?
Yeah, the guy that's impressed me the most throughout the whole entire playoff run for this Edmonton Oilers squad is Jake Wallman. Mm-hmm. This guy is a savage. This guy's a savage, and Stevie Y gave him up for nothing.
Yeah. Stevie Y gave what happened there? Because there's something, Yzerman, he didn't
make enough phone calls because apparently there were a lot of teams that were actually interested. And when they saw that they basically paid to get rid of him, other general managers were baffled from what I hear. And then the Sharks, because they absolutely knew they were never going to make the playoffs. They were going to give him power play one, rack up his stats because his underlying stats on Detroit not playing power play one were insane. Mm-hmm. His stats went up. They sold him on a high. And, every team wants a right shot D-man. They get Jake Wallman. This guy blocks shots like crazy. He's getting over 20 minutes a night. I mean, this guy's actually tough to play against. And you saw that clip the other day where, one of the Oilers players was holding up Matthew Tkachuk and Jake Wallman was just punching him in the face. This guy's a dog. He's an unsung hero for this Edmonton team throughout this whole playoff run. I mean, aside from Leon and Connor, he could arguably be the third best player on the Edmonton Oilers throughout this playoff run. This guy's a dog.
Yeah, and it pains me to say this, obviously, because, I'm not a big Oilers guy, but the Oilers made the right moves at the deadline, getting offensive guys. They didn't go out there and get, your big, we like to call them trees, right? Those tall defensemen that are physical. You're actually getting an offensive defenseman, and you're seeing that sort of alleviate pressure on some of the other players in terms of trying to get some offense there. So I agree with you. I think Wallman's been probably maybe their best. I'll say it. I think he's their best acquisition they got at the deadline, some of the moves that they made. He's been just lights out. So Jake Wallman's certainly been playing the role there. What are we thinking for tomorrow score-wise? The odds, I believe Florida's favored, I think minus 160. I'll go look at the odds right now. But what are you thinking for tomorrow night's game? Any props you want to have a look at or anything there?
Yeah, I've said it a few times, but I think this is going to be the lowest scoring game of the series just because Edmonton are going to be forced to make adjustments. And
under 6.5 is plus money, by the way. So
yeah, under 6.5 hasn't hit once this series so far, but one thing that is standing out to me is especially in New York, obviously this is going to differ from where you are, but almost 70% of the bets are on over 6.5. And normally when that stuff happens, you would expect a line shift. And if they're giving people more money than what they put down, you know what I'm saying? The line would have shifted if there's that much action one way, because it's just like when the Bills versus the Chiefs, if they're willingly wanting to give out more cash than what you put down for the underdog, there's a statistical reason for them to believe that it's going to win. Because when you go to under 6.5, the under 6.5 will be the favored one because that's 6 flat.
Any other, I was going to mention too, you're big on the shots on goal. Is there any ones that have any sort of bets you've noticed in this final that seem to be good bets in terms of, prop bets or anything that sort of stood out for you?
Yeah. So they've adjusted now, but when the season started, I tweeted this and I also placed a pretty big bet on it in the beginning of the series, but last Stanley Cup Final, Evan Bouchard led all skaters in shot attempts and he was tied for first in shots on goal. He's had 9, 7, 5 shots throughout the first 3 games. They've adjusted his line now. You can't bet him at plus money to get 4 shots on goal a game.
Oh, it's plus money. Nice. Yeah.
But the thing is I think Sam Reinert, although it's a little chalky, you could find it at minus 135 at some places. He's leading the Panthers in shot attempts so far. And he's got top line, even strength deployment with Barkov and Verhaeghe. And he's one of the 3 forwards on the power play one with Barkov and Tkachuk, because like I said before, Seth Jones and Aaron Ekblad are both playing power play one. And another prop that I like in general would be Aaron Ekblad to get an assist, because I know he scored a goal last game, but this guy's involved so much in the play in the series. He's such a vital player for their success.
Yeah. Yeah. If you get some time, I always recommend going to look at some of those prop bets. They can certainly cash out a little bit more. And even the period ones too. Like if you want to, Edmonton wins this period or whatever, like sometimes you got to look at those trends too of teams that maybe get off to better starts. Although this series has been all over the place, so maybe avoid that a little bit as well. I can't remember. Have we talked since Tocchet went to Philly? Did we talk about that last episode? I'm trying to remember if we did or not. I don't think we did. Because you said LA, and I was, had that panned out, I would have been like, oh, very interesting. But yeah, your thoughts on Tocchet to Philly. Even if we did, we could talk about it again.
It sucks. I feel bad for him. Like, it's the right move for his heart. But this team's so far away from competing. It's a complete joke.
Yeah.
What center do they have?
Yeah, I don't know.
What center, first, second, or third line that they have that's going to have an impact? Sean Couturier, after his injury, is absolutely cooked. I mean, he was a fantastic player, but he's never going to be what he used to be. And all their skilled players are wingers, and they do truly lack a number one elite defenseman. They have a lot of Shane Gostisbehere type power play one specialist defensemen, but they don't have guys that could hold it down in even strength. And a team like the Flyers that predicates their identity on being tough to play against, they're going to need to acquire some of those guys. I wouldn't be shocked if the Flyers threw out an outrageous offer for Aaron Ekblad in this summer during.
Yeah. Does kind of fit the bill for them, right? So
yeah, because their right side is, on defense is horrible. I mean, that could be one of the worst right side defenses in the entire NHL.
Yeah. No, it's
And that center group, name one team with a worse center group than the Philadelphia Flyers. I'll wait. I'll wait here all day.
You can't. Yeah, exactly. So by the way, Billy, we did talk about the Robertson trade. We think Columbus is a good fit for him. You have to look at teams that obviously have the cap space, and also teams that, have the assets to pull it off. That's the thing. Like, the thing that scares me this offseason is that you've got teams like Utah, you've got teams like Carolina. Who's another one? Like, I'm just thinking of teams that have cap space and assets. There's a lot of them, right? Like, if you look at that, there's going to be some movers and shakers.
Like Columbus specifically. This is why I think they're the best fit. And they have 2 first-round picks because they acquired one from the David Jiricek trade with Minnesota.
Which was such a genius trade now looking back. Like, it's unreal.
Their prospect pool is stacked to the gills. And if I'm not mistaken, Columbus are going to have approximately $40 million cap space. Oh, yeah, you have it right there.
Yeah, okay, of course.
$40 million cap space. And most of the guys that they have on the team, Don Waddell signed to bridge deals. So they're not really anchored down to any huge contracts outside of Werenski. Because Sean Monahan's only getting paid $5.5 million a season, which is a steal
now with the cap going.
Because now, with the cap going up, if he becomes your 3C when the cap goes up like 30% at 5.5, that's fine down the road. Not at this current moment, 5.5 for a 3C is horrible, but he's our 1C right now, and there's not really much better of a bargain than that. And I also hear a lot of people saying Dallas wouldn't want picks. If you look at how Dallas is drafted, outside of Miro Heiskanen, the majority of the guys that they have drafted that have turned into fantastic players, they've actually drafted in the mid to late first round and second round. They're great depth drafters. So to think that they wouldn't take a mid first round pick where they drafted guys like Wyatt Johnson before and Jason Robertson in the second round because he had skating problems is insane to me. And Jim Nill, even when he was with the Detroit Red Wings, look at the prospect pool that they were able to accumulate in their prime when they were winning all those Stanley Cups. So I think it's crazy to think that they would take a roster player right now because there's a lot of players that are potential buyout candidates in Dallas because they're really up against it with the new money and the new contracts they're about to take on because Lyubushkin, Matt Dumba, those are potential guys. And that's why they are most likely going to have to trade Robertson because he's probably going to get $10 million a year once he hits the open market. Because he's already getting paid 7 and change, and he deserves a raise.
Do they look at trading Sagan with retained salary? Like, that's not. He's 33. Like, does you trade that to a team that can eat some space to cut that out? Like, and I guess if you trade Robertson, that does that too. But that 9.8 for Sagan, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a tough contract. They're going to have to figure out what to do with that because there's not a lot of teams that are going to be willing to take that.
Look at all these UFAs though. Like, I think Granlund they want back. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And Maverick.
And then they also need to address the right side of their defense because them not getting Seth Jones was a massive mistake because he's a right shot defenseman that they needed. And allegedly, the Dallas Stars said, we're not interested. We'd prioritize Mikko Rantanen over you, which I would say, in hindsight, it might have been better to not trade for Mikko Rantanen and keep Jason Robertson in the top wing spot and acquire Seth Jones. But I don't know.
Yeah. And look at this. I didn't realize Harley's up for Harley. I guess he hasn't resigned yet. I thought he did for some reason.
And he's going to have to get paid too.
Yeah. Yeah, he's another guy to kind of keep an eye on. So yeah, a lot of moving pieces. Another team I wanted to look at quickly is Utah because they got a ton of space and they look good. Look at this, 20 million in cap space, and they got what, tons of picks. Look at this. They've got three second round picks in 2026. They've got all their first rounds the next couple of years. I mean, look at this. They got a ton of picks here. This is crazy.
And they have tons of prospects. Like, they can't sign all these guys. You know what I mean? To even have a relevant AHL team, like, they're going to have to make some serious trades. Like, there are a lot of players that have talent that are expendable to them that most organizations would wish they had in their farm system.
Yeah. While we're on the topic, Mitch Marner, after what we've been hearing and seeing and everything, where do you think he goes? What are some of the leading teams? We're hearing a lot of different names, but what do you think? Where do you think Marner's going to go?
My honest opinion, it's got to be Carolina.
Okay.
This is a team that's hungry for a high-end skilled player. In my opinion, I think he's a good fit for the Rod Brindamore system because he's defensively responsible. He can kill penalties. He's not necessarily tough to play against, but I think the profile of Carolina's team can kind of hide the lack of physicality and size that's in his game, especially if he's playing with a reliable two-way center like Aho, and then his other winger would be Seth Jarvis. That's got a lot of grit and tenacity to his game. And I also think that's a team that, now that they've seen success pass them by so many times and letting Jake Gensel go and a lot of these big name guys slip through their fingers, I think they're really willing to make a splash now, because I think ownership's probably come to the realization that operating this close to not the top of the cap is not optimal to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I wonder what Mariner wants. Like, you got it. Like, does he want? Carolina's not too high pressure. I guess, well, anywhere outside of Toronto is not going to be high pressure. The thing that we got to remember too, like, I mean, this is kind of a weird thing to kind of talk about, but, you know, if Marner signs there, it's kind of an FU to the Leafs, because there was a trade. I mean, we've heard from multiple people now, there was a trade in place for him to go to Carolina, and he turned it down. Now, part of that was, I believe his child was being born, and so he didn't want like a change of scenery at this point. So that was part of it. But like, that would be kind of a big middle finger to the Leafs. Like, you block a trade and then you end up going there in the offseason, the Leafs don't get anything in return.
Yeah, sign me up for that. We need some more drama like this in the NHL.
RFAs too. That's another thing. I can't wait. Yeah.
This type of stuff doesn't happen. I mean, like, you know, it's not the way that players operate in free agency / navigate around the league compared to the NBA and the NFL. It's totally different. Like, the teams have so much more leverage and rights with these players under contracts, whereas like in those other sports leagues, like, if your star player comes to you and they're like, I'm out, like, you're screwed. You have no leverage.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
I'm gonna go. I think Vegas is gonna get him. And you know, because part of me too thinks like maybe he just wants out of the East and just go somewhere different. And you know, obviously Vegas is a well-run organization. They've been, you know, a strong team since their inception. They don't, you know, and again, Vegas can't really make any trades. They don't have any picks. Look at this. No picks, no first round picks for the next 2 seasons.
Who would they get rid of though? Because they're tight to the cap.
So Carlson is the name I keep hearing that they like to try and clear out some space. And then maybe some other name. I don't know. Like there's this whole talk of Pietrangelo might not be healthy. So they could get around the cap maybe with that too. So if you get rid of Carlson, how much? So you get rid of Carlson, that's almost 6 a season, and then Pietrangelo goes on IR. That frees up probably the money to get Marner, right?
Yeah, and
which is very Vegas of them.
Used to operating with these shenanigans and loopholes, you know.
And they're ruthless. Let's be honest here. Like, they're like, would it shock you if they're like, Mark Stone, see you later?
No, and it honestly wouldn't shock me if they potentially let Jack Eichel hit free agency after this season, and we're like, why not? We run different. I mean, these guys are nuts. I mean, you really don't know. Like, there is a possibility that
I love it though. I love how they operate. Like, I think that's so, like, I know players obviously probably don't like it. Like, I'm sure Marc-Andre Fleury wasn't thrilled to, you know, get let go after being with this team, but like, I admire the risks. You know, like, at least they're willing to
duped with bad contracts. That's the other thing. Yes, they do take risks and give up assets to acquire players. But when you look at their team and how they're set up, you don't look at them and go, oh, there's a bad contract on this team. They're all like, because of the taxes, They have the best private school district. So if you're trying to raise your kid there, they have the best private school district in America.
Oh, I
So,
didn't know that. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, this is a team, and they're never in these long-term garbage deals where they're locked down to players because so many guys that they get are pending free agents. And when they acquire them, they already know who's going out the door and who's getting re-signed. The writing's on the wall. When they got Tomas Hertl, they already knew. They're like, Jonathan Marchessault, you're not getting a good deal unless you're getting taking half of what you're worth. So they basically forced him out the door. They showed him the door. They rolled out the red carpet. And I think that's, from a front office perspective, there's more teams should operate like this.
I didn't realize Eichel's a UFA next year, so that could be something to watch. Because honestly, like let's go pull up the numbers here. Hasn't really been that good in the playoffs, like not point wise. I don't think. I could be wrong. I'm pretty if you look at it here, just 10 points in the playoffs, like that's not amazing in 11. I guess 10 points in 11 games, but you'd expect a little bit more from Eichel, don't you think?
I will say this. I said this at the beginning of the playoffs. The winger situation in Vegas is a complete joke. So I don't want to hold like too much on this guy because, yes, I'm biased. I'm American. Like, he's a really responsible two-way forward. He's super skilled. He's right-handed. He's awesome. But his wingers are a complete joke. He's playing with Ivan Barbashev and Pavel Dorofeyev, who are like talented in their own rights, but they're not top-line wingers and by any means. Yes, they play on the top line in Vegas, but on any other team. Exactly.
Yeah, I know exactly. Proving your point.
Like him getting basically a point per game with these absolute joke wingers is very impressive. They're like, oh yeah, let's acquire Victor Olofsson from the Buffalo Sabres days to reignite some value options. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You know what I don't see on here is I'm sure he's under contract, but who's the guy they got from New Jersey in that trade? The prospect. I don't think he really panned out though. What's his name? Alexander, what the heck's his name? Holtz. Yeah. I haven't really seen much of him.
Okay, so he like when he was in Jersey, one of my best friends is a Devils fan. Mm-hmm. They basically said that he's really soft, and anytime that he gets a role boost, he just never takes it. Because they give him opportunities in the middle six, and like they tried him out with Nico Hischier and stuff, and it's just is not sustainable. And a big part of it is just like sustained pace and foot speed. Not that he's like insanely slow. It's just he doesn't close the gaps quickly, and other teams have a lot more space to operate in breakouts. He's not very defensively responsible.
They got to get a backup goaltender too. That's the other thing. I think Aiden Hill needs some help. I don't know if he's the answer for them necessarily. Like, he plays well. He does sort of what he's supposed to do. I think he's maybe a tad overpaid, although with the cap going up, who knows? But do you see them looking for a backup goaltender? I do.
Oh, I mean, listen, we'll send you Elvis Merzlikins with half his salary retained to be your backup goaltender.
There you go. That could work.
Because
I was going to say, sorry, go ahead.
Apparently, Don Waddell is ready to make some big moves. And as a Columbus Blue Jackets fan that follows the team very closely, the two realistic big moves that he's going to make in terms of setting the team up for the future is he's going to trade / buy out Damon Severson or Elvis Merzlikins, even if he has to retain salary, because those are the two worst contracts on the team. Besides that, everything else is fantastic. And the thing is, if you buy out Damon Severson right now, he's on the cap for like 10 years, but it's only a $1 million cap hit. So it's not that bad. Elvis is the one that realistically could actually be traded. Damon Severson, I think even if they retain some of his salary, it would be nearly impossible to trade him, because even as a third pair defenseman, he's like slightly undersized. I don't think he really does it for any team as a 3D. He's really a 7, honestly.
Yeah, and Jarkko Kekalainen was the one who signed him to that, right? Or was that Riddell? Yeah, it was.
Jarmo.
Yeah, that's right. Thank God Goodbranson's off the books too next year.
I love him.
We didn't like him here in Vancouver. He was not. He didn't. He was part of the trade that. Remember, Canucks traded Jared McCann. They drafted him and Jake. What's his name? Why am I blanking on his name? Jake, the guy who didn't pan out in Vancouver, the other first round pick. I forget his name. Anyways, Jake. Whatever. I'm thinking Jake Wallman, but that's the Oilers player. Jake Virtanen. Sorry, Jake Virtanen. They drafted him and Jared McCann. And then for whatever reason, like a year later, they traded Jared McCann, and Goodbranson came back the other way. And that's because Benning liked the fact that he was physical, and he never panned out here. It ended up turning into Tanner Pearson, which then ended up turning into Casey DeSmith. So that's
because the thing, like, expectations are huge, and you know this, and especially with your contracts. Eric Goodbranson, when he was drafted, I believe he was not the first, maybe if he was the first overall pick, but he was a top 3 pick. He was drafted insanely high by the Florida Panthers. And listen, when you're drafted that high and you're a defenseman, they expect offensive output. And I think it was realistic to expect that after a while in the league, that this guy's never going to play on your top power play unit. He's just tough to play against, gritty, and will throw hands if anyone wants to bully the young players. And that's exactly what he is for us. He plays on the third pair. He's gigantic. He roughs people up, and he protects the young guys. And that's all we need from him. And the way the cap's going, or at least it was when he's been here, $4 million for a third pair D isn't horrible. At least now. Maybe in the first year of it, it seemed insane. I remember when they first signed it, I was like, oh my God, $4 million. But like the last 2 years in this one, $4 million for a 3D that brings grit and is tough to play against. I like him.
That's a good positive spin on it. I'm just noticing here, obviously, I didn't realize Fabro was a UFA either. So do you think he'll be back? Do you think it seemed like he was a fit there?
This is so tough because and this is he played amazing for us. And obviously I'm trying to be realistic because I don't want this team to get punked out by guys on their contract year, which happens very often. And I think Don Waddell does know that. And this is why I don't think he's actually going to get re-signed unless he takes a crazy, crazy discount. And I don't think he's going to, because there's no reason that he should after the season he had this year. If you look at the Columbus Blue Jackets stats offensively, they were the 6th best offensive team at scoring at even strength. The only way to shore up this team and improve them is to make them harder to play against in defense and keep pucks out of their net. Their goaltending tandem was horrific last year. The last few games of the season when they were in a playoff push, Jet Greaves had multiple shutouts, and he is looking like the future of our goaltending. But Provorov was playing on the offside on the right side almost the entire season. Dante Fabro was waived by the Nashville
Predators, yeah.
And just because his cap hit was about like $3 million and change, no one wanted to take a swing for him mid-season because most teams don't budget out their cap well. He filled that role for us. Jordan Harris is most likely not coming back. And I honestly don't even see Provorov coming back unless he takes a crazy deal, because he's going to end up being our third pair D, because Denton Mateychuk is unbelievable. So it's like a lot of these guys I don't see coming back. And especially with how Don Waddell's trying to build the team, a lot of big bodies, it's like it's almost too obvious that they're going to pay Aaron Ekblad a shit ton of money to be their right-handed D moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, going to keep an eye on that. Another UFA I wanted to get into. Obviously, we got to talk a little. Well, I have already some Canucks, but Brock Besser. Where do you think he ends up? Because, again, I think it's almost like it's funny. They had all the posters and stuff come out for next season, and obviously Besser's not on there, but it's like just pretty much known that Besser's not going to be back. But obviously he can score and all that, but the skating's not great. And he's going to look for a long-term deal. So who bites? Who gets Brock Besser? Do you think? I'm putting you on the spot here, by the way.
I think this is possible.
Yeah.
The New York Rangers.
Okay.
I think that's a crazy take.
That's actually a good idea. They played well together.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said that I mean, you could reunite him and JT Miller. They played amazing together.
Yeah, and that brings the much needed depth, because I think the Rangers clearly are in need of a second line winger, because Mika Zibanejad playing on the top line wing is a complete joke, and he's not what he used to be. And apparently if Chris Kreider's going out the door to Anaheim, they're going to be short another winger. So they're going to need another winger.
Yeah.
And Mika Zibanejad in recent years, he's been afraid to shoot the puck unless it's on the power play. So we know Brock Besser is not afraid to shoot the puck at even strength. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm almost sure about this. Let me double check this. I believe Mike Sullivan was the assistant coach in Brock Besser's rookie season in Vancouver. I think, unless that was way too far back. I got to look here. Mike Sullivan, when did he coach? He was with the Canucks for 2013, 2014 that was probably too far back that Besser wasn't on. No, Besser wasn't on the team. I thought maybe there would be a connection there, but no, doesn't look like it. But yeah, I could see that. Cause I don't people keep thinking Minnesota, but it's like, I don't think they we talked about this. I don't think they're going to bite. Like, I don't think unless he takes like a big discount, but I don't really think he's needed in Minnesota.
Yeah, and I also don't think he exactly fits the profile with how Minnesota wants to build their team, because
exactly,
aside from Kaprizov, and this is why they're getting rid of Marco Rossi, like the undersized forward thing doesn't jive well with Bill Guerin. Like, as skilled as Marco Rossi is, like, there's a reason he's going out the door as a potential offer sheet candidate / guy that they want to trade before they lose the rights to him. And I don't think that they'd be willing to take on another undersized guy because they already have Kaprizov and Zuccarello, who aren't big guys. Kaprizov can hold his weight well, but Zuccarello's old and he's not big. Matt Boldy's absolutely gigantic. I don't know if Gus Nyquist is returning, but he's not big either. Like, they can't keep hoarding small wingers on this team if they're serious about being tough to play against.
Pius Suter's someone to keep an eye on. He played really well for Vancouver. He basically was the second line center when Miller left. Like, he slotted in there. He slotted on the wing. He's a good, like, no pun intended, Swiss Army knife. Like, he's Swiss, I believe. He can do it all. The thing is that I think from the Canucks perspective, they know they have to get better. I don't know what that looks like. They're going to have to figure something out via trade to upgrade, losing Besser and Suter and find some players that are better. But Suter's a guy that's going to get paid, and it doesn't look like he's going to be back in Vancouver. He would be good on like a contending team that needs someone that can like fill roles if there's injuries there. So even like a Toronto or somewhere that like I could see him getting maybe a bit more than what maybe he's actually worth. What do you think about Suter? I don't know how much you've seen of him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if we're talking about a guy that can move throughout any part of your lineup, he is him. Serious top 5 teams should be. I mean, they're going to be operating under tight cap space because most top 5 contending teams are under tight cap space. But I think if you're serious about making a playoff run and potentially have a guy that might end up on LTIR in the regular season, you're going to need him to play up the lineup. That's huge for you because he can play center, he can play wing, and he's not easy to play against. That's for damn sure, because I know when Columbus plays the Vancouver Canucks, I mean, he's one of the guys that always gives our players problems.
Yeah. Something to keep in mind.
Sherwood, he's horrible to play against as well.
Well, there's talk here, like, do you trade Sherwood's so valuable to the Canucks, but do you trade him knowing that like you would get a pretty good return for him with how well he played last season? Like, he's only at 1.5. Like, that's a steal. That's probably one of the best contracts in the league. So there's a lot of options that the people that are talking about with the Canucks. An interesting thing with the Canucks, the GMs did not go to Buffalo. They didn't go to the combine. There's just a thought that they're going to trade the 15th pick and maybe one of their top players. Like, there's talk of maybe Jonathan Lekramaki possibly getting packaged in a deal for a second line center. So I don't know what the Canucks are going to do, but
crazy.
I know, but that's like, they got to trade someone. That's the thing. They're going to have to trade a prospect. And and defense is actually an area that's now become an area of strength because they've got, look at these guys that they've locked up. Obviously, you got to plan for Hughes leaving in a couple of years, but they just re-signed Derek Forbort. He's kind of like that veteran defenseman that they're bringing back. He has, by the way, has a connection to, they got Kevin Dean from Chicago. He's their assistant coach now. Dean coached McAvoy and all these guys in Boston and Forbort. So that was part of the thinking, I think, is that he's very good defensively with defensive players. Vince Mancini's been playing lights out for Abbotsford right now. I don't want to trade him, but like, you've got these prospects. I don't know. They're going to have to trade a prospect, I think is what I'm saying, to get that second line center to make a big move. So I'm really curious to see how this unfolds because there's nothing in unrestricted free agency, I think, that the Canucks are really interested in to try and upgrade their offensive group, right? So,
and what do you do with Thatcher Demko as an upcoming?
That's the other big question, right? Like,
this guy's injury prone. We know how talented he is.
Yeah,
we know once goaltenders start getting these recurring lower body and back injuries, they never stop. They never stop. And this was a guy that before he had these injury problems, we were talking about him potentially being like the ace for Team USA a few years ago before the competition started actually becoming real. And then the last few years, I mean, he can't stay healthy, sadly. And I know, like, from fantasy hockey in years past, this was a top 3 goalie in fantasy hockey. This guy was an absolute monster. I remember I picked him up off waivers in the beginning of the season before people caught on to the trend. It's a tough decision to make because we know how inconsistent goaltenders are. It's very rare you obtain a guy like a Bobrovsky that can just keep it no matter what team he's at and just do it over and over and over again. And if he's already getting paid $5 million a year, he's 29 years old. He's going to get a raise. Do you want to risk that on a guy that's missed almost the whole last 2 seasons?
I got some thoughts on this, and there's another wrinkle in this that I'll add as well. But first, I want to get to this quick question. He says, I need the Panthers to win due to how mind-numbingly annoying the draft lottery king bandwagon fan base has gotten. Oilers never. This is something that people don't understand in Vancouver. Like, there's just, I would say if you polled most people in Vancouver, they don't want the Oilers to win because we're bitter and we're, and the Oilers would never, the Oilers fans would not cheer the Canucks if it was the other way around. So I think people got it. Like, a lot of people are shocked. Like, I've had people being like, oh, you want the Panthers to lose? I'm like, actually, I don't. Actually, I'm kind of cheering for Brad Marchand. He's not on Boston anymore. I don't have a problem with that. Like, a lot of people are kind of cheering for Florida right now. There's just there's just that rivalry there. So, Mister, I'm on the same page as you there with wanting the Panthers to win. Okay, the Demko thing. This is what makes things really interesting. Part of the reason that Abbotsford has had such a good run in the playoffs this year, Artur Silovs has been playing lights out goaltending. He's been playing awesome. He's a big reason why they're in the finals right now.
Latvian legend Artur Silovs.
Yeah. And it's just a weird career he's had because he is he's had these big moments. Like he won the world championship with Latvia, if you remember, a couple of years ago.
And not Elvis Merzlikins, may I mind you, the best Latvian goaltender.
That's true. So you got that, and then we saw him in the playoffs last year getting thrust in as the third goaltender, right? Because remember, it was Demko was out, then Casey DeSmith got injured, then it was Silov. So he plays in big moments. He had a terrible regular season last year for the Canucks. That's actually why they sent him back down. You got to answer that question. Something's got to give here. Here are the scenarios that are being put out here right now, okay? So I'm going to go through them real quick. First and foremost is, what would you get for an Artur Silovs? Because here's the thing. You've already got, you don't want him being a backup.
You never get fair compensation on the trade market from goalies. It's a horrible idea to trade him.
Yeah. So there's that like maybe you keep Silovs because he's playing well. Maybe you take that bet. There's also talk that, yes, they re-signed Kevin Lankinen, but that's a pretty good contract for a guy that played a lot of minutes last year for Vancouver. He's 4.5. He's going to win games for you. He actually played really well, but he's never going to be Demko. You know what I mean? Like Demko could steal you games.
He's your on his head.
Yeah, Lankinen is
perfect tandem.
Yeah, he is the perfect tandem goaltender. Exactly, well said. There's talk that maybe they trade Lankinen because that's, again, like a good contract for a team like Vegas, for example. If you wanted Kevin Lankinen at 4.5 as your backup for Adin Hill, I think that's a really good option, honestly. So there's things like that. Then there's another wrinkle in this, which is Thatcher Demko has publicly said, I want to stay here. I like the Canucks. I like it here. He lives in California. It's not that far, flight-wise to come over to Vancouver. If you got a guy, what have we been hearing? Talkett didn't want to stay. Quinn Hughes is apparently leaving to go play with his brothers. Like, maybe you want to keep a guy like Demko. So my thing is this. I say you bring Demko. I say you sign Demko to maybe give him some term, but get the cap hit pretty low and figure something out. Like, don't give him like 8, maybe like a 7, 6 around there. Like if he's willing to do it and it's kind of a bet on both sides being like, look, we're going to invest in you long-term, but you got to try and stay healthy or whatever. I know it's a risk, but you know what's riskier? Going into the season next year with Kevin Lankinen and Artur Silovs, that's a way bigger risk because here's the thing with Demko. When he's healthy, you have that potential upside of him playing like a Vezina candidate. I think that's a better bet than banking on Kevin Lankinen, unfortunately. So that's where things get tough.
And I agree with you. And this is almost a similar situation to where it is in Columbus, where it's like, we have Elvis. He's got a few years left on his contract, and we're going to need to get rid of him. To my knowledge, Daniil Tarasov is a restricted free agent. Right. And he's 6'6". Any team's going to take a flyer on Daniil Tarasov. He might get offer sheeted for a low amount. I'm not saying they're going to trade him. They're going to get some crazy thing for the guy. Some team's going to take a flyer on Daniil Tarasov. And this is the wrinkle with Columbus. Jet Greaves has a one-way contract this year. It was a two-way contract last year. It's a one-way contract this year. So something's going to give. We're trading Elvis or we're buying him out. And we're re-signing Daniil Tarasov to a small deal to be the tandem 1B to Jet Greaves. Or we're not signing Daniil Tarasov, letting him walk / getting an offer sheet for him. And then we let Elvis's contract expire. And Jet Greaves is going to have to come up and stay because on the MSG broadcast, or not the MSG broadcast, the TNT broadcast, because the 1 or 2 games that Columbus played on national television, Henrik Lundqvist was breaking down Jet Greaves' game, and he said verbatim, he has the best glove in the entire NHL. And it doesn't matter that he's the age that he is. It's the best glove in the entire NHL. He doesn't give up rebounds on it. And when Henrik Lundqvist is saying that about you, a goalie whose opinion I respect very much, I believe it's the truth. And although he's undersized, his reflexes and rebound control are unbelievable. Like I said, down the stretch of last season when Columbus missed the playoffs by 1 game, this guy in a short period of time put up 3 shutouts for us in must-win high-pressure games. And Elvis Merzlikins had a concussion. He was forced to be put into this situation. He didn't have a choice. He wasn't expected to do that. And a goalie that young, with the path that he's had, it's only fair to him to be our 1A next year.
Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe you trade a Merzlikins and then you bring in maybe a more capable like backup, like or maybe Merzlikins is your backup. I don't like. What do you like? How do you navigate that? Because obviously it's a big hit for a guy that's probably not going to be your starter. You just said it there. Greaves is going to be your guy. Do you go and find like a like Pickard and Skinner are actually UFAs this year. So
this is me. This is me personally.
Yeah,
for our situation.
Yeah,
Elvis Merzlikins has a reputation for not being the greatest teammate. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that's fair because when we came into the season, when Don Waddell was interviewed, they said, "Oh, like they're asking about certain players, like, oh, like what are your expectations of certain players?" And he said, "My only expectations of Elvis Merzlikins was to be a better teammate and tap his defensemen on the shin pads when they block some shots for him because he's a hothead. I mean, this guy punched Tom Wilson in the face. I mean, this guy's fucking nuts. Like he comes out." I like him, but he doesn't have the personality to be a backup goalie, if that makes sense. And
I see.
He said he's quoted Zlatan Ibrahimovic for the soccer fans out there, one of the most talented players ever, who's famously narcissistic and also a legend. He said, "I am a starter. I am not a backup, just like Zlatan." And I'm like, I respect that, but you said it yourself. You can't be the backup, so he's going to have to be the one to move.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Definitely a lot to keep an eye on.
Half the salary, and it's not that bad. 2.7 mil. I think most teams would take a stab on him as an option for 2.7 mil.
Certainly makes a difference. Troy, this was great. Again, game 5 tomorrow night? Is game 5 or game 4? Game 5. Game 4 tomorrow. Tomorrow night, Florida, Edmonton. Make sure you watch it. We'll definitely link back after the series is over, and we'll definitely talk about what's going on with the UFA class. Again, thanks so much to everyone watching here. Troy, I know you got a lot of soccer stuff going on. Let people know what's going on in your world these days and where people can follow you.
Yep, you can follow me on TikTok at Sleeper Manchester City. Manchester City just signed 3 new players, so there's a ton of news going down. And next week, the Club World Cup starts. So if you want to see some of that content, check me out. Thank you so much for having me, James.
Yeah, it was great. We'll definitely get you back on here soon. I'll be back next week, the usual time, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time. This is the Fanatics View Hockey Show.